Hello, everybody. Welcome into the hard launch of the ACBA podcast. Um, in this kind of coming season, I'm hoping to do podcasts for kind of all of the leagues to some extent. Future episodes, I'm going to be trying to bring in different people from the leagues to do this with me, potentially even be the main host, but the ACSU podcast this week is not going to happen. So just didn't work out with our schedule. So I thought, all right, well, I've been cooking something here in the ACBA anyway for our segment. And I thought, let's just expand that out and go into it. So I built the rosters. Not perfect, you'll see. I'm going to go into the stats of each team in just this last simulation. So it is not reflective of the entire thing. But what I do hope to be is reflective of the allocation of minutes to these teams. The only one that will be probably different is this Timberwolves one. I have to have an active team. I chose the Timberwolves because they are the top team in this simulation. Won't spoil everybody else, but this is why this team is 82-82, but I'm guessing everybody else won't be. So this is auto allocations, and the rosters are not 100% accurate. So you will see different players in different spots than they should be. Players filling in roles, which we'll talk about for a couple teams, that they won't be able to have that good of a player in, influencing the sim. My idea was essentially level set everybody, auto simulation stuff, and just see how they do. So coaching comes into this a huge part. Not a predictive sim, but I just want to see. At this point in the offseason, cores have been established. How are our cores stacking up? So, methodology, I simulated through 10 seasons, this being season number 10. Every 2 seasons, I had to reset the sim entirely, redo the settings, everything like that, because it would start creating the same outcome as the second one every time. So, it's every two resets, recycles, choosing different teams to be the main, all that stuff. So, obviously, the main, like this one, impacts it some. This is not their best sim, though. So, anyway, first team up here, the Minnesota Timberwolves, our best team on average, and it is not even close. Our second place team in terms of average wins on the season is 9.1 games under this team's performance. They are our only team over 60 wins per season on average. They are, in fact, so high up there that there are most like there's only 5 teams that have a single season, as high as their low season and win total of 57. A high season win total of 69, but pretty consistent within that window in the low 60s. So, um, obviously, very talented roster team. I expect to do some serious noise, but laying it out, everyone base. And you can see here on the stats, I mean, Ant putting up almost 30 a game. You got Towns with 11 boards, a double-double. You get, obviously, Halliburton up there with 8.6 assists. You can see pretty quickly why this team continues to win these games at the rate they are. I mean, their core three shooting over 40% from three. A lot of their role players shooting well as well. On pretty decent volume here too. We're talking about 50, 40, 90 seasons almost across the board for these guys. So efficiency's up in this, not adjusting for that, but yeah, this is a team that continues to dominate in these sims. Going to our next team up, the team that is 9 wins behind them, and our first team in the East is the New York Knicks. So the Knicks, for their part, have been maybe a bit less, the high end, but even more consistent than them. The Timberwolves had a spread of 12, a spread of 9 for the Knicks. Their average season being 54.3 wins. There's a much tighter grouping the rest of the way here until we start getting to the bottom. So there's a middle grouping between 40 and 50, maybe even a little lower than that. That all kind of ends up in the same range. And this Knicks team being the top team on average, and also the only other East team with a win total that ever hit 60 in this data set. So when they put it together, they definitely could be very good. You'll see here, LeBron playing lighter minutes, but still getting up 20 a game. Pretty balanced scoring load across the board. And I just want to show you kind of how these teams are playing. So This is kind of how the team shakes out. We won't spend as much time necessarily on all the teams. Our next team up, second best team in the West, being the defending champion Oklahoma City Thunder. This is a team that did make some moves the other direction this year. So seeing, without Brandon Miller, leading guy on the other side there, the team we just watched, you could see potentially them fall down a little bit, but also still very good team. They had our second highest peak win total of 66, but as you can see by this 54.0 average, they do not end up there very high. They are actually one of the few teams that have a true big difference on the median versus the average down. Like it's a full game under for the median, so they just kind of win, 50-ish games a lot of the time, and don't really push to that 60 range fairly often, despite having that 66 high. So put it together, the team can certainly peak higher than this. It just hadn't happened very much within the sim. Their low of 49, not terribly outside of the range of the norm here, but our biggest spread between high and low, except for I think, yes, there is a couple teams who are bad that have higher ones for like an outlier good season, but they are up there in terms of dispersion, especially among the better teams here. So, well, it's just because of the high peak, really. Moving to our next team here, our second team in the East, the Atlanta Hawks. Hawks team very much in the hunt last year, put up a good fight, just couldn't quite get over the hump there, and they are back at the top this year. Kevin Durant, Austin Reeves leading the way in scoring, CJ McCollum. I mean, this team balance scoring, a lot of balance scoring kind of going around here in these middle teams, but they end up with a 53.6 average. So these three teams kind of in the middle, separated by zero point 0.7 wins. There's going to be a little bit of a gap to get to our next grouping. They kind of have the opposite thing of the Thunder. They are actually a median of 55 wins, so on the average a little better. But they did have a couple of seasons sitting in that it's almost exactly 49, which is their low. Sub 50 win season, just right at, and they only peaked at 57. So they sat at the polar ends essentially, the 57s or the 49s, 50s. So pushes their average down, but still very talented team. They're going to be well within the mix. Next team up, our third team out west, is the Houston Rockets. Maybe a team I expected a little better from within the simulation, especially considering Wemby winning MVP every now and then, and defense player of the year, things like that. Like I maybe expected a little better, but this is Trey shooting so good consistently. But either way, they've maintained a pretty steady run. Their median and their average is pretty close together. They did hit a high of 58 wins at a low of 46 wins. But that low is going to be in line with this next grouping of teams, really, for them. So their average win total being a game and a half, or 1.1 games below the Hawks of 52.5. Again, still good for third in the West. Moving to a team very close to them, the Sacramento Kings. A shocker for me, just in general. I know the team is pretty good. Didn't think they would sim as good in this context. But obviously, as you can see here, their entire starting lineup was very good at filling up the bucket. And at that point, if you're going to get this much scoring out of your starting group, you can understand how they start to win these games. So, RJ Barrett shooting good. Amen also shooting really good and seemingly not shooting, too many threes. So, obviously, shooting 57% for him, going to be huge. 13 a game, big variance point for them. But they have had much higher peaks even. I think this simulation actually we're in is their low water mark of the simulation. They have a high of 59 wins, which is a little higher than these last couple teams we talked about. But the low of 46, sitting right close to the median. Their average win total is 52.3, just 0.2 behind the Rockets. But as you see, the depth here going to look a lot different for them once they kind of get their signings in for stuff. But as of right now, Landale, Terry Williams, who I think is a free agent, Coro, I think is on their team, whoever. We're going to start seeing this a lot more with these teams as they sit in the middle. But a good run from them. Next up, a team I was hotly anticipating, also expected maybe a little better of, the Miami Heat. Giannis and Brunson. Brunson has won even an MVP within this set. Giannis is also up there, so these two falling out big time. But as you can probably see here, it just does fall off. What we anticipated for sure, but just not quite the sustained level of peak that you were hoping for from this team. But the two stars are going to be an absolute problem to deal with. So you're not too scared necessarily as the Heat, but they just didn't really put together, the seasons as consistently. They had the 58 win season, so right in line with this kind of grouping where they had like that peak up there, flirting with 60, but a low of 44 is our lowest for these top 10 teams. So, and that was, I think, a play and miss too. That was a weird sim. There's been a couple of weird sims, but the East gets pretty weird. It's pretty wonky with it. As we'll get into when we start talking about the bottom teams, especially, there's a cliff. But consistently near the top for them there. Moving to another team out east next will be the Raptors. Raptors putting up very good simulations on the whole, sitting here inside of our top 10 teams at number 8. There is a little bit of a jump down from 51.8 of the Heat to 51 for the Raptors, exactly their median, and a pretty tight dispersion here. 54 is their max, 45 is their low, which I believe is kind of a little bit more of an outlier even within that. So usually sitting right around 50 wins, 50, 51 pretty much every single time. So bears out in the results here. But pretty good run of simulations for them. Obviously, they didn't even start Zion every game, so that's a little wonky. But Zion, Aaron Gordon playing the power forward position together, that's going to be a little wonky. Obviously, they will have different deployment for them to get them up above minutes. Everybody's low on minutes, so this team I think could play better. Another team I thought might be hurt by the simulation aspect of it, how it went, but they prevailed and were great. Our next team up here is a team that up until probably my last set of four was probably going to be top 5 on this list. I think they were really simming much better than that on average, but may have just been memory bias there. Dallas Mavericks. Luka has continued to ball the entire time. That's not surprising. Sabonis, for his part, double here. I would imagine to be pretty similar to how things have gone for him. They are just a tenth behind the Raptors at 50.9 wins, and their high win of 57. I feel like they were sitting a lot closer to like the 54 range, which would put them in the top 5. Up until you start hitting these bottom stretches where they start winning more in the 40s, 47 being their low. So not a terrible dispersion either, just not quite what I thought they were doing early on. So all these teams ranging 10 wins or so, they kind of stay within that, but they were doing a better job early. And then we have one last 50-win team on average. This team rounding out our top 10, being the Detroit Pistons. Pistons, perennial finals team for us here. Cade, Bam, leading the way for them. Tyler Hero jumping in there, putting in nearly 20 a game. Kevin Porter as off the bench. Russell Westbrook, who I don't know if they have, but I threw him on there. He was on this team, so kind of how it goes. But they kind of had, I think, the opposite experience of the Mavericks, where I think they started off a little bit more sitting on the low side. They did also hit a 57-win sim, but a 45-win sim as well. So they definitely went high and low, and that kind of keeps them sitting right here in the middle. 12 game dispersion there for them. So we exit our top 10. Reflecting on the top 10, really there is 2 notable exceptions we'll get into for me. How I felt like this was going to go down. One team that I think is an exception here is notably far down here, will not be in our next tier of teams we discuss. Next tier of 10. It's going to be well below that. They are down in a range that I would have simply never expected them to be. So certainly interesting as we'll get to that team. But another team sitting right on the bubble of this East play-in mix would be a disappointing outcome for them. But I do think the top 10 overall, looking like the Kings, Raptors were maybe my surprise teams for how I expected the sim to go. But overall, I would not be surprised to see them sitting in this top 6. One observation I did want to make, when I got through here, there is a team missing from this, but There is, in the Western Conference specifically, a 7 game gap between the top 6 and number 7. It is pretty clear that no coaching into it, that there is a clear playoff tier and a play-in tier. The play-in team cycled pretty variably, but that top 6 was almost always. I think there was maybe this sim is one of the exceptions, but there was like one or two exceptions where a team was able to jump them and get into the regular playoffs, um, and actually upset them. And it took that team winning 50 games. Below here, there is only below that team, there's only one team that wins 50 games in any season, and that team is the one that jumped them in this sim. We'll talk about it, but um, overall, top 10 I think is pretty solid. Number 11 gets pretty nuts. This team simmed at the top of this thing the entire way. I thought that they were going to finish in the top 10 comfortably. They did tank it at the end pretty bad. The Brooklyn Nets, James Harden, Jimmy Butler. I mean, Demon putting up 19 a game. I mean, great stuff. So they simmed excellently. I mean, truly excellently. They put up a 58 win season here, which is higher than all of our teams we just spoke about, up to the number 7 team, Miami Heat, who also put up a 58 win. So, I mean, they have a higher top end season than the Atlanta Hawks, which I think might be the sim too. But they had this peak where it's like they were up there, and they were up there a lot, but then their low is 40 wins. That's the lowest we've gotten to. This is a non-playoff team at the low, and this was, I mean, no way to put it, weird. 18 on the dispersion, up there for sure, but just had some really good years from James Harden and Jimmy Butler as well. So this team has what it takes to win some of these regular season games. Getting Derek Lively 67% from the field. I mean, dunks gonna go crazy. But yeah, definitely one of the more fun ones out of this sim was the Nets going crazy, which it makes sense with Harden and of it all. But our next team up here is the exact opposite team in about as many ways possible. The Chicago Bulls. The Chicago Bulls have our lowest dispersion of games. I mentioned earlier I thought it was lowest. This one I think is just definitely the lowest. They, on average, 48 games. The Nets were 49, so one game below. Their peak season was 51 wins for the Chicago Bulls. Their lowest season was 46. A dispersion of 5. That is tiny. I mean, every other variance is 8 to 10, 8 to 10, 12, 18, and they only spread out by 5. Consistent team, filling up the stat sheet here. Ingram, Banchero, Morant, continuing to put up good numbers. Obviously, Gigi Jackson's gone, stuff like that, but that core 3 carried them up through here and kept them right in that mix for the 6th seed pretty much every time. They weren't quite ever good enough to get, a couple seasons. The East fell at 50 wins a ton. So when you get that 50 win sim, like, kind of can fly up to 2, 3, 4, but they were pretty much always in that tier of teams fighting for that number 6 seed. And they won it a lot because they just didn't have the bad year. So firmly a playoff team here at 12, more so than I feel the Nets even at 11, just because of the volatility of it. But also a team that maybe is getting a pretty good outcome with how their stars played. How much can coaching build that into the better team? Just an interesting team there. Our next team up, a team that finishes out our West top 6, the LA Clippers. This sim, I believe, is a disaster for them. I'll go to the standings for the season at the end just so you guys can see it because I reference it a lot. But I think this is their low season by a lot. Their average is 47.2. It is a 5.1 game gap between 13 and 14 overall, and then like I talked about, a 7 game gap between 6 and 7 in the Western Conference. Their median season is 1.3 games higher at 48.5. I don't think this thing calculated median correctly, but I'm not going to get mad at it yet. I'm just doing the spreadsheets. Their high season of 52, so that's what I mean, pretty close to the average there, but a low season of 35, which I do think is this one. So this sim specifically, they fell and one team rose, who we'll talk about later. But overall, very balanced team. J-Dub, Kessler, Gobert, Avdiva, Hedgecombe, I mean, we don't got Fred for him yet, because the sim was done mostly before that signing was made. So you'll throw Fred VanVleet on there. Maybe that's the stabilizer they needed, not have that 35 game sim, and then they're boom, 16 in the playoffs or better. So right there in the mix, very good team. Next team up, our last team that is actually comfortably above 40 wins on average. Everyone else is basically right at 40 or lower. Is the Indiana Pacers. Pacers undergoing new management here, looking to make a couple moves. Obviously, Sabonis gone. Go and get Jaren Jackson, who puts up a monster year in this one. 24.5 game. Great stuff out of him and good efficiency at that clip, too. And then his customary almost 2 blocks. OG, Matherin, Derek White, pretty rough sim from him. And that's kind of where I think their ceiling is going to end up going to. They need better out of him. So, very interesting team in that respect. But they, you know, I think, their median, they outperformed their median to a decent degree, in part because they just kind of sat below 40 a lot, but they did hit high a decent bit. They are our last team in the East to have a 50 win season, exactly at 50. Their low mark of 32 is the lowest we've seen so far, and the lowest we will see for a few ranking spots. So, yeah, low lows, middle highs, but they'll need more from Derek White to kind of get that. So we'll see if FTF can unlock this lineup and get more out of Derek White. Last team, top 15, going back to the West, 40.3 wins per game. It's the New Orleans Pelicans. They just struggled in the sim. There's just no way around it. They were not a very good team a lot of the time. Um, they didn't hit 50 wins. It's not a team that did it. So going through a bit of upheaval. Obviously, they traded Durant, Siakam trying to take his place. They just didn't find the magic in these Sims. But a team that has a lot of room for it to get better. If Siakam starts, or if you start Claxton and Siakam, you move Franz to the bench. Maybe he scores more. Hard to say exactly what needs to happen, but something probably needs to change from how this season was deployed. It'd be interesting to see kind of how they do. They are a team, weirdly enough, that I felt was going to benefit from the way I did things because I thought I left them with a decent player, but maybe I didn't. I mean, Garza, but Garza didn't start for him, so. Huh. I thought they had. Oh, yeah, Sexton, right here. Sorry, Colin Sexton. I missed him at the top. Started 82 games. He's not on their team. So, players I didn't have somewhere. So I thought they were going to get a boost from that, but it doesn't seem like they did. Or if they did, things might get dicey here in New Orleans. Moving on. Our surprise team for me, this team I expected to be much higher in this setting and just in general, so I'm interested to see the stats, is the Philadelphia 76ers. Just no way around it. This is a bad sim from them. Bad sim range for them. Um, they just, Kawhi only getting 21.8 a game, but you get Jalen and Jamal 28.3 points per game. You tell this team you're going to get that, you're going to expect it to be way up there in the ratings, but their high season was only 46, just like we talked about with the Pelicans. 46 is their high. Pelicans had a low of 37, by the way. I didn't say that. But the Sixers' low was 35. Sitting here at 40.3 wins, same as the Pelicans, just did not have the best, average, essentially. Didn't have the best low. And it's tricky. How do you make it work? I think it's got to be more Kawhi, right? You just got to get Kawhi to be scoring the 30 points a game, and maybe that's the difference. But just an interesting sim for them, and we'll see kind of how they take it and maximize this team kind of going into the year. I'd imagine they finish within that top 6 in the East range. And then our last team above 40 wins, the number 17th ranked Orlando Magic. Magic, pretty good seasons in here. There's some mixed in very, very good seasons. So they had a kind of an interesting run here. They had a peak of 48, a little higher than our previous tier, and a low of 36 right in this range. So they definitely fell right in that middle ground a lot, being down here. But hitting a high of 48, that'll put you firmly in playoff contention. You can, get more out of Kyrie, potentially get more out of Chet, get him over 20, get Kyrie 25 or so. That's kind of your path to winning some more of these games. But overall, especially I think when you get to full games, Thompson will be better in a full game. Um, for that. Get more out of Jared McCain potentially in these 23 minutes a game. Definitely played him, but just to see kind of how they'll deploy this. Be interesting. Maybe Watson at the 4 more, and get him in at the 3, stuff like that. Because it doesn't seem like they played together much with the game started split. Um, but yeah, it'd be interesting to see kind of how this team gets deployed. Maybe Chet at the 5 is kind of how they do it. A little more at least. But moving on to Team 18, the Cleveland Cavaliers. So very east middle here, because the West falls off pretty hard, honestly, in the play-in race. We haven't gotten to the 8th team in the West, and we are on team, I think, 9 in the East, maybe even better than 9. This might be, I think this is team 11. This is team 11 in the East here at 39 wins. So this is a team that isn't even making the play-in on average. And so you talk about these teams, 39 being the low, and we're getting a team 8 next for the West that's at 38.7. So just the middle for the West is falling out. The bottom fell out for that. And the East, they do go in the bottom, and that has probably helped lift up this. Because we are not going to talk about an East team for a long time after this. But for now, Mitchell, not enough. And that's really what it comes down to for them. Mitchell didn't give them enough. Murphy didn't give them much. And they just not really set up yet to win it. Is where it comes down to. So we'll see kind of what they do to accentuate this lineup and get them rolling better. But as of right now, obviously you trade Jaylen Brown, so you're kind of acknowledging that you're not going to be there. But with this team, they should still be closer to the play-in and try to be pushing for that. But it kind of feels like the East in real life, where it's like there are 11 teams that kind of feel okay. They kind of feel like the Orlando Magic of that group, where it's like, yeah, they should be the one that miss. But maybe they can put it together and be that team. There's enough variance here. They made it a decent bit of time, but they didn't have the high end. Every team above them has a better high end record. They are at 44 wins at peak and 34 wins at the lowest. So they not only have the lowest peak, they also have the lowest low of every team above them except the no. That's where, yeah, every team below them except for the Pacers. The Pacers had one season worse than their worst season. So not quite the lowest peak or lowest floor, I mean, but it's definitely down there. And if you pull off a 32-win season, you're not going to really pull it off anyways. So just not quite the sauce this year, at least in the sim. But coaching can do a lot of part of this. Donovan Mitchell can get up to 28 a game if you coach him right. So that's where you're looking. You're looking to coach him out to 28 a game. But obviously they didn't get it this time. Now we jump to the West, and this is our surprise team, the team that messed up my perfect narrative, the San Antonio Spurs. This simulation was fantastic for the San Antonio Spurs, an outlier of all outliers. I think that they were really right around this range, probably a 44 average, 44 high up until this sim they did this time where they won 52 games. A peak I did not think they were going to have. 50 wins I did not see in this team's future. I just didn't think that they would do it. I didn't think they had the scoring punch for that. But if you're going to get 23.5 out of Harper, 17, you're going to get your entire starting lineup above double digits. Obviously, Harrison Barnes plays a big part of this, but he's not going to be on the team. But I don't think Harrison Barnes' efficiency is going to be tough to replace per se for them. But credit where it's due. They played the rookie a lot. Not a rookie, I guess second year guy, Harper a lot, and he hit him there. This does not have rookies in it. Didn't want to do a custom roster. Didn't want to mess with that. So Harper plays well, leads the team, and gets their offense to the point where they could be a top 8 team in the West on average. They are a number 19 team. A peak season of 52 being this one, and a low season of 32. A 20 game spread would have been much closer to 10 before this one came out. So they really leapfrogged with this sim. But good on them to do it. What is in for them? 38.7 wins on average, a median of 37.5 is probably more in line with what you'd expect. But like I was saying, that is going to put them in the hunt for this play-in, and they probably are a favorite to be a team that plays 2 play-in games if they lose the first, right? So overall, good sim from them. Speaking of good sims, this is one that I almost will wholesale throw out. It's the Golden State Warriors. Um, Realistically, though, it's just because their lineup is built up of guys, like their rotation is built up of guys that just won't be on their team most likely. They only have 6 guys under contract, and they're gonna have to fill out with depth. Now, if they fill that depth out to this extent that kind of played, maybe, and obviously no injury stuff like that. Like they did have pretty good Sims consistently. The big three here kind of playing pretty good. Monk putting up 18.4 in this simulation, so 50, probably 50, 40, 90 on him. So if they get it, I mean, they could do it. Certainly not outside of the realm of any believability, but it'd be crazy if they perform better than the Nuggets, which is how they did on basic. I don't think there was a single sim the Nuggets did better than them. Maybe like one, um, well, one or two, like truly like 70% of the time at least, they were performing better than the Nuggets in the sim, which was just wild to see. Peak of 44 wins, so kind of in line with the Cavs, not really a truly threatening team, but a low of 29 wins, so that was lower than the Nuggets' worst season. So they definitely had one season below them, but wasn't pretty. 37.1 average is a little bit of a jump down from the Spurs, and the 37 median though they're right in line with that. So good work on them. We take another drop down here. The Warriors being our 20th best team, so that's through our top 20. But now we head to 21, the Utah Jazz, and undoubtedly disappointing outcome for the Jazz to be here. Um, 29.3 points per game from LaMelo. I looked at him a lot just because the Jazz were one of my special interest teams in this. Same with the Spurs. LaMelo balls out every time. The turnovers kind of fluctuate. The assists kind of fluctuate. This is kind of a low end assist, high end turnover sort of seasons, but even still, like you're not getting anything out of Jalen Johnson. 13.7. He kind of always sitting at 15. Jeremy Grant putting up 16 is fantastic, but you really just want all those shots to go to Jalen Johnson. So that's kind of where my head's at with the signing. Maybe play him less. It works better. Playing doesn't score, so you're glad to get him rebounds and blocks and stuff. Murray Boyle's 10 points a game is pretty good. 5 boards, So interesting team. Didn't quite hit the ceiling ever, really. Peak of 40 wins and a low of 30. So they don't got the peak in them. That's what it is. So they're going to have to unlock that in order to really get there. But we head to our 22nd team, the disappointing team, the Denver Nuggets. What do you say? I mean, we talked about, people don't believe in the depth, stuff like that. I'm definitely more of a believer in the depth than some, but I mean, there's no question that this is not going to get it done. Um, you get 36% from the field from Draymond Green. That's probably a big torpedo in the offense for sure. You get Jokic season, a classic Jokic season. You get Steph, who kind of just becomes a shooter, which at the volume is fine. You'd like for him to be a little more of a facilitator for them. Flag kind of plays the third kind of role to Kuzma, doing way too much, which I would have guessed for sure. You want Flag getting all his touches essentially, but yeah, this is definitely a rough sim for them, and I was honestly just kind of hoping that like Steph just didn't play. It was like, oh, Steph doesn't play any minutes, which is not like it. I was just hoping it was like one of those weird things that the game just decides not to play their guy. I think you can get something more from Klay Thompson being the guy, a little more than McBride, but yeah, that's tough because Denver being next to the next team here. That can't happen. There's no way that they can be in a virtual tie with the next team on our list, number 23, the Portland Trail Blazers. Let's be honest, guys. Blazers, we're in a bit of a retool here. Um, Dame scoring 23.8 points a game. That'll be better. I'll hopefully do better than 23.8 points a game. That's my path to winning more games than this. Because overall, I don't think my Sims play too poorly, kind of by production from guys directly. It's really just utilization that kind of came down to it. So we'll see kind of if I can do better. But this sim didn't go great, and there's a few of them that didn't go too great. Dispersion here, 38 wins at the high. Our first team sub 40 at a peak, and 30 wins at the low. we basically just kind of remained right there at 35 wins on average. We had basically the same. I watched my team a fair bit, just checking in on when I had to stop for stuff. And it's like, oh yeah, we have 22 wins at this point in the season every fucking time when I stop. So yeah, we didn't do great. We weren't thriving. And we didn't thrive in the simulation either. Number 10. 24, Memphis Grizzlies, team that they expect to be higher, and I can't blame them. Certainly higher than my team, but just kind of fell right in the mix of that. It's tough. I think Scotty's just not a very good fast simulation player. Neither is Laurie Markkinen, and they need both those guys to be the number ones, number 1, 2. They just didn't get it. So utilization, I think, can help them get there, get more scoring to those guys. But they fell down here. Um, our next team up, 25, the LA Lakers. Lakers, I think, are another team that had a couple helping pieces potentially, but either way, they Scoot was good. Khan doesn't score much, which I talk about as my issue with Khan and kind of how they're going to play him in the game. Not they as in the team, they as in how 2K goes, but very good dispersion of points. You get a lot of guys scoring 10 a game. Everyone over 20 minutes puts up 10 points a game. So that can definitely work to be a scrappy team that finds themselves in the play-in. In this simulation, I do think they find themselves in that play-in. The Lakers, peak season of 37 wins, a bottom season of 23 wins. So 28.4 average. We took a big jump down from the Grizzlies. Grizzlies are 33.4, so 5 games down from them. And we jumped to a team, our last Western Conference team, worst on average, but them and the Suns were battling out. It's the Suns. Last team we had said, don't do any buying, Acorn. Devin Booker on his own, 29 points a game, but everyone else just not up to snuff. With him, you gotta play for the future here a little bit. But Booker, good season for him. Hell yeah, get yourself an All NBA team. 28.3 wins on average. Peak season of 35, lowest in the West. A floor of 21, lowest in the West. So pretty consistently ended up being the worst team, even though they ended up only 1/10 behind the Lakers. Just their inputs for this were low. Their median's a little higher. So good work from them. Their median season is 28, so they basically just peak out right here essentially. But now we head to the dumpster fire at the bottom of the Eastern Conference. Starting us off, the Washington Wizards, our 4th worst team, number 27 overall. Yeah, what more can you say, really? Could be some utilization here. They're a very flat team, so exactly trying to maximize strengths for certain guys when they're all similar overalls is probably going to struggle. They would not surprise me if they can sim an average of 28, 29, 30 based off this outcome with better utilization, but and there's no way around it. When you have a low end of 16 wins, it's just pretty hard to really see yourself out of that with any coaching. Peak season of 33 wins, our lowest so far, and it'll just keep getting lower though from here. 21.6 wins on average, just not a very good basketball team. Next up, Charlotte Hornets, team in flux for sure. I guess they signed Jaden Ivey in this, and he leads them in scoring. So that's great. And Valanciunas might even go overseas, so they need Pritchard to be the highest scorer, but they got to get him to do it for sure. 21.1 wins on average. The peak season of 25 wins, a floor season of 16 wins, so they're splitting the difference on that there. Just not a very good team. I'll say that a lot. Kind of come down the stretch here. Second to last team here, the Milwaukee Bucks. Sengun, pretty good consistently, but just everything else around them not kind of working really. Drew, everything else just Drew's not fit for this team. He needs to be they need him to be the second guy in there. He's not. So that's tough. A 20.1 average, peak of 26, a low of 16. The only silver lining is they are a tier above our final team here. The Boston Celtics were basically always the worst team in the East, the worst team in the league. There may have been a couple times they were second worst, but their peak of 21 is basically at the average for everybody else in the Eastern Conference. Their average of 15.6, being 4.5 behind. Their worst season was 12 wins. They just don't got the juice. So from there, Well, we'll take a look at our standings in this individual season, kind of head out of here. But yeah, 40 minutes. That's what I was aiming for. Go me. So Timberwolves clear league of their own. Every single season, it was that way. Kind of going down. Differentials obviously kind of a big part of how I look at the game. Jazz only negative 2.9, up there with you know Nuggets, Portland Trailblazers, Lakers kind of perform well in these tight games for their high watermark season of 37 being this one. But I talked about it. The Clippers fell down to 8 here, but the team that supplanted them being the San Antonio Spurs, 52, an outlier season for them. I'm actually going to look to see kind of what their seasons were, and see what their next one would have been. Going into this simulation, their peak was 42. They beat their peak by 10 wins in this one simulation. But what I would say is, in defense of the Sims or kind of how they go, when I'm doing these, I want to know what your peak and floor are. That's why I mentioned it on everybody's. When I'm trying to figure out how good I think my team's going to be, how good I think other teams are going to be, even in imperfect circumstances, as long as the core is there, that 52's out there is what I will say. You have to beat everybody else's adjustments and everything like that, and all of this. There's so many variables to go into it, but 52 being out there is the sign you're looking for. It's not out there for these other bottom teams. So maybe San Antonio got a little sauce that I didn't give them credit for, but it's 1 out of 10 odds right now that they're even going to be a playoff team at all. So definitely interesting stuff there. Eastern Conference, we'll see here. Obviously, Knicks kind of consistently near that top, but point differentials bear it out. Negative 10 plus, negative 10 to negative 17. This is a tier that we experience. Those three here, clearly the bottom, 4 through 1, or 4 through 2, and the worst team here, the Celtics. It's not even close. The closest the Suns get here. But yeah, it's just not a good simulation. So even there isn't even the Celtics' worst sim, and none of their worst sims, and they're still down here. So it's just how it goes. It's not their best. So we'll go ahead and simulate the playoffs real quick, just so we can see something. I don't use this very often, but more content. Sure, we'll see who wins the official 10th simulation finals here. Oh, look at that. A lot of upsets here early. Sacramento, LA. So San Antonio doesn't win a playoff series. Sacramento beats them. But then it's OKC and Minnesota at the top. And then the East is a lot less dramatic as well. Brooklyn does get beat first round. But yeah, interesting. First round there from the bottom seed of the West. Minnesota versus Sacramento. And Detroit, New York. So rematch Detroit, New York. Two teams taking step back in theory. New York beating the Giannis-led Heat in 7 games. LeBron, not even if they have a good game. Brandon Miller, though, 9 for 11. Again, this is not how Sims go. Giannis puts up a good game, but Brunson, 4 for 22, disappearing act. They only score 75 points as a team. A Game 7 blowout, and the Knicks, Eastern Conference Finals bound. Let's see who wins this one. And the Knicks are going to make the finals. Halliburton, LeBron, there at the end. Knicks, Timberwolves, 2 7-game series here. This one goes the way of New York, and simming this one. And the Timberwolves sweep them. Anthony Edwards, 32 a game, wins finals MVP. And that will do it for us here. Thanks, guys, for listening in. And yeah, season's going to be upon us soon. Got to finish up our depth charts and all that stuff, sign our depth guys, and get rocking and rolling. So excited for the season. And if you would like to be on the podcast going forward, and even if you want to bring a topic to talk about, I am absolutely game to do that. I'm going to play it a little more impromptu on these and allow you guys to kind of let your voice be heard if you'd like, or even if you want to suggest a topic for me to ramble about. I'm always down. So I've been Seal, solo show just to kick us off, but congratulations to the Timberwolves on winning our fake finals simulation. Peace.